just like we're reading about in the news. You got to go through all your expenses, right? And you've got to find ones that are just not necessary.
Hey guys, I'm John from TurboTenant, and I'm joined by
Seamus, and we're going to talk about DOGing your rental process.
Awesome. And DOGing for us doesn't just mean cutting stuff or raising rent. It also means process improvements, cutting out all the fat in your process, and making your life as a landlord a lot easier, cutting out some stress and that kind of stuff. So we'll cover all those topics today. Seamus, are you ready?
I'm ready. Rock and roll.
Let's start with property managers. A lot of landlords use property managers. Are they efficient to use?
Not at all.
Tell us more.
So property manager is going to be one of your biggest expenses outside debt mortgage, right, that you may have on a property. Losing right off the top that anywhere between 8 to maybe 12, even 14% of your rent is cutting into that cash flow in a big way. So there's alternatives, right? You can turn to software that can actually make it really easy to manage yourself. This is absolutely self-serving, as TurboTenant's one of those softwares, but there's a bunch of others out there that are going to equip you with what you need exactly to manage the rental process yourself.
Awesome. Okay, so fire your property manager. First thing. Second thing, fancy tools. I know my dad right now pays for a subscription to a company that charges him, I think, $200 a month.
You can name it. It's okay, John.
And he only manages 6 units, which seems absurd. At that point, it's a property manager, isn't that right?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all.
So what should be some criteria you're thinking about when you're picking the tools you're using to manage your property?
Just like we're reading about in the news, you got to go through all your expenses, right? And you've got to find ones that are just not necessary. So if you're paying for different point solutions, or maybe you have some legacy software running in the background because you want to hold on to the data, cancel those subscriptions, export the information that's useful, and try to consolidate under one bill. Ideally, a bill that's not going to charge you on a per unit basis, so you stay cheaper the whole time as you grow your portfolio.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so consolidate all the old stuff, put it all in a bundle. Ideally, pick one that's a very small fraction of what you'd be paying for a property manager or one of those fancy tools.
And John, let's say firing your property manager isn't actually in the cards, not something you can do. You can always go back to a property manager and renegotiate the actual fees that you pay. That's something that landlords a lot of times don't realize is in their power, especially when the economy's looking downwards a little bit, maybe housing prices are dropping. It might actually be an opportunity to go back and renegotiate on some of those fees so that you still have that service, but it's not nearly taking the huge bite out of cash flow that it likely is today.
That makes a lot of sense. So in the case, like if you're remote, really far away from the property or something.
Exactly. You're remote. There's some unique circumstances where it's not possible for you. Best bet, manage it yourself. Next bet, renegotiate those fees.
Gotcha. Awesome. Sweet. All right. Next up for us is finances. You made me add this. The first bit you added is high interest debt. And this is something that I was astonished to learn not everybody is paying off first.
I think it's just a helpful little reminder that if you have multiple debt facilities, make sure you're paying down the one with the highest interest rate first and foremost. Pool all your cash flow, pay that off, and then go on to the next one. It's a good way to save yourself a lot of money over the long term and make sure you're stretching the value of your portfolio.
Yeah. And when you say a lot of money, you mean thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it is not a small amount whatsoever. The other huge benefit of pooling your cash flow and paying down a single debt facility is you now have equity on that property. So if you want to turn that around and refinance it into another property in the future, you can. It's not beneficial to have 30, 40% equity on a whole bunch of different properties when you can have one completely and maybe get a line of credit on it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. Like it's strategically valuable to have one paid off property.
Especially if those properties are in unique LLCs and not in kind of an entire portfolio together.
And another reason a lot of landlords get into real estate investing at all is for the tax benefits, but not all landlords are taking advantage. So could you talk us through how they can start approaching that differently?
So while there's a ton of content out there, if you're like me, there's nothing like talking to an actual tax professional, someone that knows it, that's done it. And so my suggestion would be find 3 or 4 of them, do consultations, let them sell you on their services. And as part of that, ask the questions, what's the last property owner, real estate investor that you saved a lot of money and how did you do it? And have them actually walk through that. That's going to let you know different tactics you can actually take to do the same. And then when you're done with that, you can decide, do I want to go out and pursue these different methods myself, right? Learn about it myself and try to implement it. Or do I actually want to pay for a high quality CPA, tax professional for maybe a year to set up some processes that allow me to do it myself in the future?
Gotcha. Awesome. So go out and find a professional, learn from them, and then decide, hey, should they execute on it every single year for me, or should I do this myself based on the lessons I learned?
Absolutely. You can decide whether or not you want to run it yourself.
Cool. On to home upkeep. This one is a fascinating one, and a lot of variability in how people approach it. How should we approach home upkeep tasks like snow removal, lawn care, that kind of thing? What's the optimal approach?
Yeah. So whether it's the reoccurring tasks like landscaping, or it is things that happen a little bit more episodically, like your maintenance requests. Make sure you have a team. Make sure you have vendors that you trust and have vetted so that they can go respond to those emergency maintenance requests, and you're not just Google searching, right, and taking the first quote you get at a given time when an emergency pops up. The other thing is, I would suggest, if you're using other people, the other thing I would suggest is go out to the companies you're using for things like landscaping and snow removal.
Yep.
And you have two really good options. One, decide to do it yourself, right? Take that on, save that money. Maybe that's not in the cards necessarily. You can also push a lot of those tasks actually onto your tenant. Something that we did with a single family property that we own is we had a tenant actually handle all of the snow removal themselves. It wasn't a huge driveway or anything. They shoveled it themselves, and they actually handled the lawn cutting, the lawn care.
Oh, nice.
And the result of that was an expense. It was no longer on my books, and they took care of it. I just made sure to really specifically write rules into the lease that said how often lawn care had to take place so that they didn't get in any trouble with the HOA.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned doing it yourself for this home upkeep stuff. One thing I hear a lot of landlords do, and it causes them a lot of stress and time wasting, is driving to pick up checks. There was one landlord I remember talking to specifically that would drive 40 minutes every month to pick up checks from 3 different properties in different areas of the city they were in. Well, how should they be approaching this? That's a problem, right?
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
No matter how much you love your car, you could probably drive your car somewhere else on the first of each month.
Yeah.
So go electronic with it, right? Is the easiest thing to do. If we rewind back to when you're talking about find a software, kind of an all-in-one solution, make sure part of that is rent collection. Also make sure that software is not just going to automate it in terms of send out the reminders and send receipts to your tenants, but also gives them the ability to do autopay. So they too can set it and forget it. And so neither of you are thinking about paying rent each month. It's just coming in as you'd like.
Gotcha. That saves time on driving and also all that headache of chasing the money if they're not paid on the first.
Exactly. Most landlords I talk to that receive rent late, the first question I ask is, how do you remind your tenants to pay? They say I don't, or I shouldn't need to. And I say, just get a system. So it's not a personal process that you're doing. Make rent collection not personal and have a system do it for you.
Awesome. Sweet. Okay. And on to this next one. It's not efficiency, and it's efficiency in a different way, right? And this is just simple risk management stuff. Every landlord knows that they can have an event in a year that could wipe out all their gains from last year. That's just kind of the business we're in. So risk mitigation is really important, but a lot of landlords still don't do it. So let's first talk about lease agreements, and just quickly and efficiently copy pasting last tenant's lease and moving on with that. Why is that a bad idea?
Yeah, that doesn't do the trick, right? State laws change, your lease has to change too, to adapt. And so each time you go to write a new lease, right, you got a new tenant coming in, make sure you're using something that stayed up to date with any local or state laws. Go through that process really simply. At TurboTenant, we have a builder. You walk through a couple of questions. We make sure we're up to date on all the local laws. And within 15 minutes, you're going to have a lease agreement that you can actually trust. Send that over to get e-signed. Talking about efficiency, don't bother printing it out, right? Sending it, scanning it, faxing it. Send it over to be e-signed. You're going to have a copy of that lease agreement. Your tenants are going to have a copy of the lease agreement, and there's no reason for anyone to not have it and not understand what's on it.
Awesome. Cool. Don't recycle your leases. Build a new one. Cool. And how about the property condition one? This one's especially important in more and more states, actually.
Yeah, it's another opportunity to go electronic, right? Have a condition report that's going to be filled out digitally, include things like photos. make sure that if you're the one doing it before move-in, that you're then sharing it with the tenant and making them sign it. So you both have an agreement that that is indeed the condition, or do it the other way around. They fill it all out, comes to you, you sign it. Then you're going to do the same thing at move out. That's going to be the documentation that you're going to use to decide whether or not you need to hold back any funds from a security deposit.
And not only help you decide, but it'll make sure that once you do decide and clearly capture all the costs associated, that you're not going to spend 1-2 months fighting about it with the tenant.
Yeah, it's also a great way to create that starting relationship with a tenant, which is like, hey, this is the condition of it. Please sign that you agree with that. So we're on the same page, because a lot of tenants are worried that at the end of that period of renting, they're not going to see that security deposit back anyways.
And how about this? This one's big. I've heard a lot of, especially new landlords, will say that the tenant they have in the unit right now seemed great, and I trusted my gut, and I brought them in. What do you say to that person?
The best one I've heard is, I'd just been blessed for years, and then I finally got a bad tenant, right? So the best way to avoid eviction, which is an incredibly painful and costly mistake, is to make sure you're screening your tenant ahead of time. Get an application, get a background check and screening report so that you understand who is moving into the property. It's also really beneficial for you to make sure you're collecting pay stubs, as well as even calling any previous landlord references. It takes a little bit of time up front, saves you a whole bunch of headache and pain out the back. And the great thing is these processes are actually free for you. You can use a service like TurboTenant, where the application fee that a renter pays covers the price of screening. So you have all the information you need to make the right decision.
So we talked about risk mitigation stuff, talked a lot about time savings and process savings and headache savings for landlords. And we talked a lot about literal dollars and cents, right? How you can save literal dollars and cents on your rental business and cut the bloat. Anything else you want to add about doging your rental business?
I'm sure that some of our listeners have great ideas and are yelling at the screen right now of stuff that we didn't say. So if you do, please throw some in the comments so the rest of us can benefit. And maybe if you have a great comment, it'll be something we'll comment on next time.
Awesome. Like and subscribe. Thanks for viewing. We'll see you guys next week.